Hey, welcome back to the third episode of The Parent Path, a parenting podcast designed for the parents of X Church and beyond, where we believe that faith is a journey and so is parenting. And so the goal of this podcast is to live in the intersection of those two. My name is Jesse, and I am the host. I'm also a father. I am a husband. I also get to serve as the next gen pastor at X Church. And I am excited to get to spend some more time with you this month talking about one of my favorite subjects on the planet, parenting. And if you listened last month, you know we are right in the middle of a 3-part series about the phases that our children go through. So if you happen to miss last month's episode, that was episode 2, I would really encourage you, go back and listen to that, where we dive into what a phase actually is. That it's not just some expression that we throw out when our kids are teenagers and they start listening to angsty music. Oh, it's just a phase. But it's actually something that can help us understand what is actually happening beneath the surface in our kids as they grow up. And when we understand that information, it helps us love and lead our children a little better. So if you missed last month's episode, I would really encourage you go back and listen to that. In this month's episode, we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty details of all the changes and the phases of development that they go through from the time that they are born every year until they turn 18 years old. We're going to talk about things like the physical changes that they go through, the verbal or social changes that happen as they grow up, the mental and emotional things that change as they grow. And again, I just want to reiterate, why do we dive into this information? Well, one, I just selfishly, I find it fascinating to learn about this stuff. But really, when it comes down to it, when we understand the changes that are happening in their minds, in their bodies, it helps us do our job as parents better. When we understand what they're going through, it helps us know better how to love and lead them. And so with that, let's jump right in. Like I said, we're going to go through every year from a newborn baby all the way to 18 years old and talk about what's happening in their bodies and in their minds and happening to them socially at each one of those years. So in a baby, the first year of their life, physically, this is what's happening. At around 3 to 4 months, they learn how to lift their head and their chest. At 4 to 6 months, they'll start reaching for objects and they learn how to roll over. It's always so exciting when that happens for the first time. At around 6 or 8 months, they'll learn how to sit up and grab things with 2 fingers, kind of the pinching motion. Anywhere between 6 to 10 months is when they're going to start to learn to crawl. And they can stand up unsupported or maybe even walk at around the 11 to 12 month mark. Verbally, we've got all kinds of action happening in the first year of their life. They can have distinctive cries for different needs anywhere from the time they are born up until 6 weeks. So there's, especially moms are really good at picking up on, no, that's a hungry cry, or that's a tired cry, or they're mad right now. At around 3 months, they will turn towards your voice, mom and dad. They can mimic your tone and start to little babble, make baby talking noises around the 6-month time frame. They can understand a few simple words around 9 months, things like, go or no, at around that 9-month mark. They can understand around 70 words and may start to even say their first words sometime around the 12-month mark. Mentally, they are mildly aware of everything. Even when they're young and they maybe don't seem like it, they are still mildly aware of things. And they're going to learn through their 5 senses. How do they learn that snow is cold? Well, they stick their hand in it and it feels cold. That's how they learn at this age. And emotionally, at around 2 months, they will know how to mirror your expression. So if you smile, they're going to smile back at around that time. They can distinguish between a happy face and a sad face around 4 months. They'll turn away from strangers to show fear at around the 6-month mark. And they can show surprise at super loud noises around the 7-month mark. So that's what's happening in the first year. Now, what about when they are 1 year old? They are entering into the toddler phase. Physically, again, if they haven't started already, they're going to start to walk around the 12 to 15-month mark. They can walk backwards or sideways around 15 to 18 months. They can scribble with crayons around the same time. And later on, around 18 to 24 months, they'll learn how to climb upstairs and downstairs, and they can jump in one place. Verbally, they'll start to point to objects when they want you to name them around the 18-month mark. So they'll point to stuff, and what they're saying, even though they're not saying it, is, "What is this? Tell me what this word is. What's the word for this thing?" At around 18 months, they'll say 10 to 20 words that are mostly nouns and pronouns. At around 24 months, that number is going to jump up to around 40 to 50 words and can at times form two-word sentences. Things like "I do," "we go," stuff like that. And they can understand much more than they can actually communicate. So they're going to understand what you're saying way more than they can actually say to you. Mentally, they can start to follow simple instructions. Come here, go over there, sit down, things like that. They benefit from repetition, and they still learn through engaging their five senses. How do they know that the cat does not like to be grabbed? Well, they grab the cat's fur. The cat gets mad and, growls at them or swats at them. That's how they learn. And emotionally, they're going to learn how to recognize basic emotions in other people at around 1 year old. They can tell if you're happy. They can tell if you're sad. They're definitely going to have some trouble sharing at this age. They may begin to role play activities, meaning things like they want to play baby dolls. So they want to be mom. They want to be dad. At around this age, sometime in the 1 year old, they can display some separation anxiety. Again, when you drop them off at daycare, when you drop them off back in XKIDS, they might start to be a little fearful when you're going to leave them. That starts to happen around this age, and let me just put you at ease. That is totally normal. It is an okay thing for them to cry when you drop them off. It is okay. Drop them off anyway. It's good for them, I promise. And something interesting that happens for this year and the next year, they play next to rather than with playmates. So instead of, they go and play kitchen together and they're both chefs and they're working on the same meal, if they're playing with a buddy, they're both maybe playing in the kitchen, but they're not really playing with each other. They haven't really learned how to do that yet. So that's the first year, 1 year old. Let's talk about 2-year-olds. What's going on? Physically, they're learning some more skills. They know how to jump in place. They will be able to throw a ball over their head, so overhand. Way you would traditionally throw a baseball. They can briefly stand on one foot. And this is around the age where they might start to demonstrate a hand preference. You might be able to tell, are they going to be a lefty or a righty? Verbally, they can say 40 to 50 words, including some action words like go, around that 2-year, 24-month mark. And then as they get a little bit older, they can say approximately 300 words and simple sentences like "I do it" at around 2.5 years old. So a big jump there in the first half of the 2-year-old year. They can learn how to whisper. Not that they'll do it all the time, but around 2.5 years old, they learn how to whisper. And they can understand a whole lot more than they can actually communicate. Mentally, they can follow simple instructions. They benefit from repetitions. They are unable to take the point of view of other people. So at around this age, you may be tempted to say, when they don't share well or they take somebody from one of their friends, saying, "Oh, how would you feel if somebody else came over and took a toy from you?" That does not work for them yet. They're not able to understand other people's point of view yet, and they're still learning through engaging their 5 senses. Emotionally, they may begin to bite, scream, and throw tantrums if they haven't already. They're still going to play next to rather than with playmates. They can recognize basic emotions in others, and they may begin to name their own emotions around the 2-year-old time, saying things like, "I'm happy," "I'm sad." And when they do that, it is just the cutest gosh darn thing that you've ever heard in your whole life. Now, they get a little older, 3 years old. What is happening? All kinds of stuff starts changing around this time. Physically, they can balance on one foot for a lot longer than they used to be able to, 5 to 10 seconds. Their fine motor skills improve, so they could string beads onto a little piece of yarn. And they learn how to cut with scissors around this time, obviously with the safety plasticky kind of scissors, but their fine motor skills are working towards them actually being able to do that. They can walk upstairs with alternating feet, meaning that they don't take 2 steps on every step. They can just go 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way up the steps. They can put their shoes on, not that they will all the time, but they can put their shoes on. Just don't try to correct them if they put their left foot in their right shoe. Verbally, they are getting increasingly easier to understand. You don't have to interpret them to other people as much. Other people can easily understand them. They're still going to struggle with some word sounds like R, L, S, Z, J, the SH sound, the CH sound, or the TH sound. That's totally normal. At this age, they can say well over 1,000 words, but let's be honest, who's counting anymore? And they start to be able to answer simple questions like what, where, and when. Even though it might not be totally accurate, they are at least understanding what those words mean and can answer those type of questions. Mentally, they may struggle to understand what is real and what is not real. Things like monsters in their closet. Saying things like, well, monsters are not real is not going to work. They don't understand the difference. And here's a little dad hack that I've discovered with my kids, especially our youngest. Every night he says, I'm scared of monsters. And he's around the 3 to 4-year-old phase as I'm recording this. What has never worked is saying, are monsters real? No, never has worked. Let me tell you what works. I go around his room and I beat up all the imaginary monsters and I tie them up and I pretend to throw them to the moon. And it might sound crazy, but it actually works. That puts him at ease, and he can go to sleep when I beat up the imaginary monsters. So the lesson there is you cannot fix an imaginary problem with logic at this age because they can't kind of grasp the difference yet. They're still unable to take the point of view of others. They live in the present, but they have some limited memory of past events. And they start to learn by putting things into simple categories. This is a church thing. This is a school thing. This is a home thing. Emotionally, they're still going to be screaming, throwing tantrums, and show aggression, which is maybe a little bump up from what we've seen in the past. They start to enjoy physical humor and simple jokes. Pretending to fall down is just going to be the funniest thing they have ever seen in their whole life. They can express basic emotions when asked. Are you happy? Are you sad? They can express that now. And they can tell you what makes them happy or sad. This makes me happy. I like going to the park. I like chocolate. Makes me happy. Things like that. Now, 4 years old, the last phase before we get into the elementary years. Physically, they can hop on one foot. Again, they can string beads onto a piece of yarn. They can throw a ball overhand and catch a ball that's bounced to them sometimes. Still working on that. They can draw circles, squares, and a person with 2 to 3 body parts. So they can draw a head that's going to have maybe some legs or, some hands or things like that. Verbally, they can tell a short story. They can keep a conversation going with you. They're still going to struggle with the same letter sounds that they used to, the R, L, S, Z, J, S, H, C, H, T, H sounds. And they can adjust their speech based on the listener and location. So they might start to pick up, this is a place where I should whisper. Doesn't mean they're always going to, but they're starting to pick up on that kind of thing. Mentally, they can sort things and ideas into categories. They can recognize less and more, especially when it comes to candy. They can tell, they have more than me. They got more Easter eggs than I got. They start to really recognize and pay attention to that stuff. They can argue, explain, and rationalize, if you haven't noticed, if you've got a 4-year-old. They live in the present, but they really enjoy retelling stories of past events. Hey, remember when we did this? Remember when we went there? Remember when we played this? Emotionally, they can tend to be optimistic in spite of failure. They are eternal optimists at this age. They can enjoy physical humor and simple jokes. Again, falling down, pretending to spill stuff. It's just going to be the funniest thing in the world. They can learn relaxation techniques, things like take a deep breath. And they often deal with fear and anxiety by simply just distracting themselves. All right, let's talk about what happens in kindergarten. We are now entering into the big hallways of the elementary school. What's happening? Well, physically, They are going to start losing their baby teeth anywhere from 6 to 8 years old, anytime over those next couple of years. They grow 2 to 3 inches and gain on average 5 pounds in this year. Traditionally, they should be able to ride a bicycle, roller skate, or jump rope sometime in this first year. They can draw a person with a body that actually is going to resemble a person. And at this phase, even though it may not seem like it anymore, they still need 10 to 12 hours of sleep each night for optimal rest and recovery. Now, instead of verbal changes, we're going to start talking about what is changing socially for them. Because again, at kindergarten, they're still learning how to talk clearly and form sentences and learning words. But we're kind of past that level of development, and the social aspect starts to play a much higher role for them. So they want to please and help adults at this phase. They have a hard time asking for help. They need guidance in taking turns and losing well. And they may show some, not a whole lot, but some gender preference for their playmates. Boys may want to only play with boys and vice versa. Mentally, they can focus on one activity for 5 to maybe even 15 minutes, depending on what it is. They can recognize and name numbers, shapes, colors. They know the difference between need and want and real and pretend. So we've learned that over the last year or so. And they don't yet logically interpret cause and effect. So they're still learning how cause and effect works. Emotionally, they tend to be optimistic. They can be fanatical about the truth. They benefit from relaxation techniques. Again, still, hey, take a deep breath, calm down. It's still very beneficial for them at this age and will be for another year or so. They express feelings better through play or art rather than words. They deal with fear and anxiety by distracting themselves, and they can be highly sensitive to harsh criticism, tone, and body language. Again, very important for us parents to understand that they're extra sensitive to that at this age. First grade, what's going on? A lot of the same stuff. Let's go through it. Physically, they're still losing their baby teeth. They still will grow about 2 to 3 inches and gain on average about 5 pounds. They should be able to, around this age, swim, skip, gallop, and move to the beat of music, dancing. It's time for a dance party. They can start to draw with some considerable detail. They're going to put hair on the people that they draw, faces, teeth, maybe even. They still need about 10 to 12 hours of sleep each night. Socially, they want to finish first, and they're super duper competitive at this age. They can be bossy and critical of others and need guidance in taking turns and losing well. Let me tell you, I've got a first grader right now, and those ring true for our household. And it actually, funnily enough, reading through this gives me a sense of peace of like, hey, this is normal for this phase of development they're in. So I hope as we go through this, you're feeling some of that as well. And they might have a best friend at this point, or still maybe not. They might just have a couple of friends they like to hang out with. Mentally, they're still focusing on one activity for around 5 to 15 minutes. They can begin to understand ironic humor and to tell simple jokes. They can be very ambitious and motivated to learn. And they're starting to learn and interpret cause and effect. When I do this, this happens. When I behave this way, this happens. They start to kind of grasp that. Emotionally, they tend to be really enthusiastic. They still are benefiting from relaxation techniques, things like take a deep breath, take a moment. They still express feelings better through play or art rather than words. They're still going to deal with fear and anxiety by distracting themselves, and they are still highly sensitive to harsh criticism, tone, and body language. Now, let's enter into second grade. Fun fact, one of my least favorite grades of elementary school for me. Let me know. Send me an email. What was your least favorite grade? Physically, they're going to continue to lose their baby teeth and start losing their canine teeth. They're going to grow approximately 3 inches and gain 7 pounds, and it's going to typically be in a big growth spurt. They're improving their hand-eye coordination and still need 10 to 12 hours of sleep each night. Socially, they may struggle in highly competitive situations when before they were super competitive. Now there's almost a fear or anxiety of not being first, and so they might struggle in competitive situations when before they actually really enjoyed them. They often prefer independent work and alone time around this time. They place a high value on fairness and consistency, and they're definitely going to start to show some gender preference for their friends. Again, girls are going to want to play with girls, boys are going to want to play with boys. The opposite gender has cooties around this time. Mentally, they can concentrate on one activity for up to 30 minutes now. So that's doubled from the previous year. They can interpret cause and effect logically. They have a much better understanding of time. They can understand seconds, minutes, hours much better than before. My 4-year-old right now says we did something 6 years ago and he wasn't alive. What he really means is it was just a few minutes ago, but he doesn't understand. At second grade, they know that. They learn well through hands-on activities, problem solving, codes, and puzzles. And they begin to notice that people have different perspectives than their own. Starts happening around second grade. And emotionally, they get a little better at controlling their emotion. They tend to be perfectionistic, and they start to be embarrassed by failure around this time. But again, you may see some of these show up in first grade, or you may not see some of these show up until third grade. But it's around this general time. They may confuse I feel statements with I am statements. So instead of I feel sad, I am sad. That sort of thing. They thrive with routine and clear boundaries, and they are still super sensitive to harsh criticism, tone, and body language. Now, on to third grade. Following up my least favorite year of school with one of my favorites, third grade. So physically, they're still losing teeth, and they're still going to grow about 3 inches in this year and gain about 7 pounds, give or take, typically in spurts. They play hard and they tire quickly, and they benefit from taking short breaks. Where they used to seem to have boundless energy, that begins to slowly subside around the third grade time. They need 10 to 11 hours of sleep, so bumped it down 1 hour from the previous year. Socially, they're enjoying cooperative group activities around this time. Where they liked some independent work last year, they're going to actually like some more group activity this year. They place a high value on fairness and consistency. They're definitely showing gender preferences for friends at this age. And they will start to gather in large friend groups now. And so instead of just having 1 or 2 friends, they're going to have posses now that they like to gather with. And it's around third grade, this is super important, that they begin to respond to peer pressure more than they ever have before. Again, a big social change that happens around this time. The influence of their friends and the people that they're around really starts to matter around third grade. Mentally, they can still concentrate on one activity for around 30 minutes. They are increasingly aware of others' feelings. Again, kind of gives us a clue into why peer pressure starts to matter a little more, because they're a lot more aware of what other people are thinking and feeling. They can recognize patterns and symbols. They may enjoy reading books, both for fun and for learning around third grade. They focus on one thing at a time, and they struggle with abstract concepts. And they have a highly definitive perspective, meaning that things are either right or wrong. There is no gray, you're wrong, I'm right type of perspective. And then emotionally, they tend to be enthusiastic, energetic, and impatient in this year. Overall, they start to feel maybe a little more independent and a little more confident. They are developing their sense of humor with riddles, little magic tricks, and jokes. And they may be quick to label themselves. Again, the social pressures are really becoming a factor this year. They're quick to label themselves as athletic or not athletic, or creative or not creative, or smart or dumb. Those kind of things really start to happen around this age. In fourth grade, physically, they're going to still be losing baby teeth. They are improving in their speed, force, and body control around fourth grade. They need physical activity, and they may become restless. So even if your child maybe isn't super athletic or into being physically active, this is still something that really benefits them at this age. And here we go, moms and dads, the dreaded time that we all are not really looking forward to in our parenting journey. They may show signs of early puberty, acne, mood swings, and rapid growth. We're starting to get there in fourth grade. Still need about 10 to 11 hours of sleep. They are increasingly valuing their peers' approval. So big social changes that are happening around this time. Peer approval really matters to them. They start to desire more personal privacy. Mom, get out of my room. It's going to start happening around now. Often thrives in competitive situations. Again, competition really varies wildly in the elementary years. Benefit from having a same gender best friend, and may be interested in or curious about opposite gender relationships, but will rarely admit it. You may start hearing a whole lot about this guy, Jason, that's in her class, but she's never going to actually openly say, he's cute, whatever, because we're still coming out of the opposite gender has cooties phase. But you might see some of those shifts start to happen. Mentally, they can concentrate on one activity for 45 minutes. They can read silently and remember what they've read in fourth grade. They're able to collaborate on rules and consequences around this age again. So kind of the next level of understanding cause and effect. Recognize different perspectives and can become more empathetic at this age. So that's a big jump that happens in fourth grade, but they're still going to struggle with abstract concepts. And then emotionally, they're going to frequently start to exhibit signs of anxiety, whether that's pre-game jitters, being nervous for the first day of school, being nervous for a test, being nervous for some kind of project happening. That really is going to come out at a higher level around fourth grade. They may begin to be embarrassed about their body. Again, some of that puberty stuff is going to start happening. Some of the what we typically attribute to more middle school or high school behavior is actually going to start potentially as early as fourth grade. Parents, we've got to have our eyes open to this kind of stuff. That's why it matters to learn this. They're going to enjoy puns, sarcasm, and sometimes crude jokes around fourth grade, which apparently I have a fourth grade sense of humor, because who doesn't love a pun or some sarcasm every once in a while? Still holds to family beliefs and values, but may ask challenging questions around fourth grade. Again, another a big milestone that we want to be aware of, and may be drawn to humanitarian causes and enjoy service opportunities, which is absolutely why your family should serve at outreach projects, just like XO Week we've got coming up here in the summer. It's actually a really great opportunity for your child to start to grow in some of this stuff, because they're going to have an interest around that time. And in fifth grade, we're going to see a lot of the same things. They're still losing baby teeth. They're still improving in their speed, force, and body control. They need outdoor time and physical challenges. Even though they may seem less interested if they're not particularly athletic or into a sport, they're still going to need some physical stimulation, some outside time. Riding a bike, being outdoors is still really good for them. And we're still, if it didn't start last year, it's probably going to start this year. May show some early signs of puberty, acne, mood swings, changes in weight and in height. For girls, this can be anywhere around age 8 to 9. Boys, typically it's a little bit later. Sometime between 9 years old and 12 years old is when you're going to start to see these swing into action. They still need 10 to 11 hours of sleep. Socially, they enjoy cooperative and group games. They're still going to desire some more personal privacy, and just for the rest of the time, that's not going to go away. All the way to 18. It starts in fifth grade, doesn't go away. Often thrives in competitive situations. They're going to benefit from having a same-gender best friend. And like we said last time, may be interested in or curious about opposite gender relationships, but is not going to admit it yet. You just might see them blush a little bit when you bring up Susie's name. Mentally, they are very skilled at memorizing facts at this age. One of the many reasons why we put memory verses in front of them in XKIDS at this age, because they're so good at memorizing stuff. We believe we can get some scriptures into their mind and into their heart at this age. They're going to stick there for the rest of their life. They may enjoy collecting at this age, whether that's, baseball cards or coins or something. They might enjoy that at this age. They are able to still collaborate on rules and consequences, again, understanding at a greater level cause and effect. They can begin to understand abstract concepts a little bit better at 5th grade, and they're going to enjoy problem solving. Emotionally, they tend to be a little more confident and content at 5th grade, but they're still easily embarrassed about their body. Again, some of that, preteen puberty stuff is really starting to happen. This is important. They need to experience moderate failure and consequences to build resilience. I'm going to say that again because that's so important. And I think parents, we miss this. They need to experience moderate failure and consequences to build their resilience. At around the 5th grade age, one of the best gifts we can give our kids is give them a safe place to experience some failure, to show that, hey, failure is not the end of the road, that failure is one of the building blocks of growth, and it's going to help them grow in their resistance. In 5th grade, they want to be seen as independent and mature at this age. They don't want to be treated like a kid anymore. They want to be treated like a grown-up, even though they're 9 years old. And they may be drawn to humanitarian causes and enjoy service opportunities. So again, wonderful time to get your family involved in some outreach. Now, let's jump into everybody's favorite time, middle school. What's happening physically? Let me just say this before we jump into some of the physical changes that are going to happen over the next couple of years. Parents, we have to lean into the awkward. Because listen, it's not fun to talk about the weird puberty changes that happen with your kids. I think a lot of parents kind of want to ignore it, kind of want to pretend it's not happening. What's happening to my beautiful, little girl? She's becoming this, real attitude-y Judy, all of a sudden. Parents, when we forfeit our authority and our influence during these years, our kids go to try and find answers, either their friend group or the internet, where they're probably going to find terrible advice. And so my 2 cents over the next couple of years, whether you have a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grader in your house or you're going to at some point, we have to lean into the awkward. We have to not just lean into the awkward, but make the awkward not awkward. These are all changes and weird things. It's a tough time of life that all of us go through. And as parents, we can help ease some of that awkward and some of that uncomfortableness that is experienced in these age if we lean in rather than lean out. So physically, they need a lot of food in 6th grade. There can never be enough food in the house because there's tons of physical growth happening. They need around 9 to 11 hours of sleep each night. Around this age, girls start to outpace guys when it comes to development. Guys will start to experience changes in height, in weight, increase in hormones, and possible acne. And girls are also going to experience changes in height and body shape and may begin their menstruation cycle. And so again, another time where it's awkward to talk about, awkward to bring up, but is a reality. And so we've got to be there for our kids, even if it's a little bit weird or awkward. Socially, they're going to super duper seek peer approval and conformity. That's a big change. Conformity is going to start happening around this time. They're going to often display their worst behavior at home and especially with mom. Shout out to all the moms. We see you. We love you. We're praying for you. They value non-parental adult influences. I want to say that again. Shout out to all the youth leaders at 6th grade and actually all throughout middle school. They value non-parental adult influences. Make your kid come to youth group. Say it again for the people in the back. They may have a romantic interest and experiment with physical affection around this age. Mentally, they enjoy learning new skills and being challenged. They are increasingly able to grasp abstract concepts like justice. They have a growing ability to see the world from different perspectives, and they can differentiate action from motive, but can often misinterpret them. Emotionally, they're going to often mask their emotions in order to fit in. Again, conformity is a big thing that starts to happen in 6th grade. They benefit from talking about what they are feeling and why. They're going to struggle with decision making at this phase. They are going to lie more in this phase than any other. So 6th grade is when lies are going to become a thing. Again, they're masking, they're trying to conform. And so what that means sometimes is they're not going to be honest. May become preoccupied with perceived abilities and will undervalue persistence, effort, and practice, meaning if they're not good at something right away, they're just going to give up on it rather than see the benefit of practice over time. And they will often debate and they will argue with emotion rather than logic. So again, this is a phase of arguing. 7th grade, again, a lot of the same physical changes are happening. They still need 9 to 11 hours of sleep, and they may easily fatigue at this age and develop headaches around this time, again, because there are a whole lot of physical changes that their body is doing kind of beneath the surface that is wearing them out. Girls are still outpacing guys in development. Guys will experience changes in height, body shape, may develop body odor and body hair, and muscle mass. Guys are going to start caring about the gains around this time. Girls may develop body odor, body hair, breast tissue may begin to develop, and menstruation is likely around this age. Socially, they will often be characterized as happy, silly, and loud. And if you've ever walked past the middle school experience on a Sunday morning, you know that is true. We are happy, we're silly, and we're definitely loud. They're interested in pop culture and new slang, which is why your 7th grader comes home saying things like chicken jockey, and you have no idea what in the world it means. They still need non-parental adult influences. Again, shout out to youth leaders. They place a significant emphasis on peer opinion. Is this cool? Is this not cool? Are they going to think this is stupid? Are they going to think this is awesome? What are they going to think about this? It matters a whole lot in 7th grade. Girls in particular, but not exclusively, will frequently display excessive meanness, increased attention to self-image, and a lack of confidence. Again, that's not exclusive to girls, but does tend to be a little bit more common in girls. Mentally, they're able to see two sides of an argument. They enjoy forming and sharing their opinion. They can solve multi-step complex problems, again, in life, but also in algebra, which happens about this time. They have a hard time with organization and time management, which is why their room is a disaster. Sudden brain growth may lead to forgetfulness. That's an important thing to remember. Their brain is growing rapidly, and so genuinely, when they say, oh, I forgot about this, they might be telling the truth. Even though you're used to in 6th grade, what we talked about, they're going to lie a whole lot. They might not be lying when they're in 7th grade. They might have genuinely forgotten. Emotionally, they enjoy silly and sometimes crude humor. Again, who doesn't from time to time? They benefit from talking about what they are feeling and why. They may be restless and still need some physical activity, but this is actually approached from an emotional side now, not just physically, but for the betterment of their emotions, they might need some physical activity. That starts now and exists all the way into adulthood. Moms and dads, let's not forget, our emotional health is sometimes attached to our physical health, and they will tend to overschedule their time. And you'll notice this because you have to drive them everywhere. 8th grade, the last year of middle school. We're seeing a lot of the same things. 9 to 11 hours of sleep. Girls are still outpacing guys in development. Guys are still going to experience height and body shape changes. They're developing body odor, so the deodorant is on deck. Body hair and increased muscle mass. Girls are experiencing a significant growth spurt around this time. They're developing body odor, body hair, breast tissue, and menstruation is definitely likely by this time. But that can happen anytime from as early as maybe 10 years old all the way up to 16-ish is kind of the general range for that to happen. Socially, they're often interested in pop culture, slang, current events, and politics. We're all about the skibbity toilet in 8th grade. They want to negotiate rules at this age. They display Increasingly adult-like personalities. All of a sudden, your eighth grader may not look as much like a middle schooler anymore, all of a sudden looking like a high schooler, maybe a little more grown up all of a sudden in how they behave socially. Again, they're still a kid. You're still going to see kid-like behavior, but some more adult-like stuff is going to start popping out. They still need, and this is true all the way up through high school graduation, they need non-parental adult influences. You need some other adults in your corner echoing the things that you're trying to teach them. So take them to youth group. They are more concerned about their personal appearance than their personal environment. In other words, they care a whole lot more about what they look like than what their room looks like or what their locker looks like at this age. Mentally, they're capable of some self-evaluation and self-critique at this age. They are able to see two sides of an argument. They enjoy forming and sharing their own opinions, and they are growing in their ability to organize. So hopefully, maybe they're going to be a little bit more organized. Emotionally, they're going to enjoy sarcasm and sophisticated jokes. Same here. Often interested in leadership roles and teaching younger children. It's about this age where we see a lot of eighth graders actually come back and serve in XKIDS, and they crush it. They do an awesome job, and so that is a tremendous opportunity that you can get them involved in to help lead and teach younger children. It's actually going to help boost their confidence. They may emphasize physical appearance and performance at this age. They're going to tend to overschedule their time still, and they often feel they're going to still feel comfortable in their own skin, even though over the next couple of years that is going to start to shift and change and get a little bumpy. All right, the last 4 years, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And I apologize, this episode is a little bit longer, but there is just a ton of information to go over, and it's all, I think, really important, so I don't want to skip any of it. So thank you for being patient with me this episode. Physically, they have difficulty falling asleep before 11 p.m. They're not just night owls. Literally, it is biological. They're going to have difficulty falling asleep early, but they still need 9 hours of sleep per day, which is why I don't understand why high school starts at, I don't know, like 4:30 in the morning. I don't know why it starts so early. It's actually biologically terrible for them for school to start that early. Guys are getting taller and smellier and hairier and gaining some more muscle mass. They're also going to really experience voice changes if they haven't by now. They're going to experience weird dreams is how it's listed, and I'm going to leave it at that. And increased acne. Again, being aware of those things, like weird dreams, matters because it's an awkward thing that people do experience, and you want to be the person that they can go to, not the internet, not their friends. Girls' bodies begin to take on a more adult physical experience, especially after menstruation. Their increase in height will slow and then stop. So not a whole ton of growth physically, or in height at least, left for 9th grade girls. Socially, girls are going to begin to wear makeup on a regular basis if they haven't already. There is an increased interest in sexual expression at this age, but dating tends to be short-lived in 9th grade. Say they want parents to listen more than advise. That is huge. Again, parents, super relevant for us. Literally, they're telling us, we want you to listen more than you advise. The 80-20 principle is great. Listen 80% of the time, give advice 20% of the time. And you will be shocked at how much better your teenager, especially your 9th grader, is going to listen to you. They may be tempted to change their appearance or behavior to gain acceptance. Again, what is cool? What's the cool style? What's the cool haircut right now? They're going to be much more influenced by that sort of stuff in 9th grade. Mentally, they're increasingly able to focus, recall, and organize information. They are overly self-aware at this age and will be for the next couple of years, and may think things like, everybody's watching me. You remember those days in high school. You felt like everybody, when you walked down the hallway, was staring at you, even though they weren't. They are wired for risk-taking and sensational experiences. One of the many reasons why high school boys make stupid decisions. They are literally biologically wired at this age to take risks. They're going to resist embarrassing situations. And this one's very interesting. I'm bored often means I don't understand. And so when it's in economics class or government or, algebra, when they're, oh, it's so boring, that might potentially actually just be code for they don't understand. But again, they're going to resist embarrassing situations. And it's a lot less embarrassing to say, I'm bored, than to say, I don't get it. Emotionally, they are going to feel empowered through choices rather than rules. Something to consider. They're going to feel empowered through choices rather than rules. They may still feel insecure about their changing body. Again, that's still present. May experience changes in motivation at this age. They're going to seek experience that create intense feeling and emotion. Again, they sensational experiences, as we just talked about. And this is also really important, moms and dads. They are more vulnerable to addiction at this age, such as things like self-harm, vaping, alcohol, pornography. They are their most vulnerable at around 9th grade to those things. So really keeping your ear to the ground, keeping tabs on what is happening in their lives can help them avoid some of the pitfalls of some of these things. Let's move on to 10th grade. Physically, they're still having difficulty falling asleep before 11 p.m. Again, it is biological. They're not just staying up late on their phone. It literally is difficult for them to fall asleep early. They still need 9 hours of sleep and preferably 1 hour of exercise per day. It's good for them. It's good for you too, mom and dad. Girls have likely reached their adult height and body development around 10th grade. Guys are still experiencing voice changes, weird dreams, and increased acne. Socially, they have an increased interest in sexual expression, and around this time, dating may become more committed. Instead of dating for 1 or 2 weeks, oh yeah, we're dating. Nope, we're not dating anymore. It might last a little longer. It's more committed now. They may experience their highest level in their teenage years of depression. And actually, just statistically, again, this is important information for us to know, moms and dads. This is the highest year, 10th grade, is the highest year for teen suicide. And so, again, we are keeping our eyes and ears to the ground, paying attention to what is happening in our teenagers' life, and we are there for them through all of this. But again, it's important for us to know that that is at its highest likelihood this year. They desire responsibilities that increase freedom. Again, this is around the time where they're getting their temps and working on getting their license and getting a car. So they desire responsibilities that are going to increase their freedom. They are increasingly able to focus and recall organized information. They are keenly aware of global issues and may be critical of the adult world. I remember when I was in 10th grade, that was definitely true of me. They're still highly self-aware and think things like everybody is watching me, even if they aren't. They're still wired for risk-taking and sensational experiences. Again, why especially 10th grade boys make stupid decisions. It's literally in their hardwiring at this age. They'll tend to be curious, inquisitive, and drawn towards the supernatural. Again, shout out to youth group. So important. They're literally, it's right here in the literature that they are drawn towards the supernatural. Take your 10th grader to a youth group and we'll help them find what they're looking for. And then emotionally, they feel empowered through choices rather than rules. They respond well to specific praise. They become aware of their own personal tendencies and patterns around this age. So they're starting to be a little bit more self-reflective. They seek experiences that create intense feeling and emotion, and they may enjoy sharing ideas with adults who will listen. Back to a couple of years ago, they want adults to listen more than they talk. And again, bring them to youth group. We've got tons of adults that want to listen to what they are working through. All right, the last couple of years, let's talk about junior year. Physically, they still can't fall asleep before 11 p.m. They can, but it's just difficult. It's biological. They still need 9 hours of sleep and 1 hour of exercise per day. Girls have likely reached their adult height and body development, and guys are still continuing to grow in height and develop muscle mass and body, and even some facial hair is going to start happening. Even though it might be like 2 or 3, they are going to swear they have a beard now. Socially, it's all right. I did it too. It's fine. All guys did it. Check out my mustache, and it's like 4 hairs. Socially, dating relationships become more committed. Again, we're not just, oh, we talk and we text. It's a little bit more of a committed relationship. This is important, moms and dads. I know we hate to talk about this and we want to act like it's not going to happen or it could never be our kid, but that is just not the case. We've got to be aware of this. Increased interest in sexual expression is really on the rise at this age, and statistically, 54% of 11th graders, over half, report being sexually active. 54% of 11th graders report being sexually active. Again, we've got to be aware of this stuff. They care deeply about issues like control, responsibility, and freedom, both personally and globally. They're thinking at a higher level. They tend to be a little bit self-focused, busy, and unavailable at this age. Mentally, they can be insightful and incisive about complex issues. They're wired for risk-taking still. They're still highly self-aware and think things like, everybody's watching me. They tend to be optimistic and idealistic. They struggle with long-term thinking, which is so important because it's at this age, it's kind of setting them up for failure sometimes. It is literally at this age where we start asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? But it's at this time, literally, they are struggling with thinking long-term. It's a real difficult time for them. They are more capable of grasping paradox, hyperbole, innuendo, and satire at this age than they have been previously. And emotionally, they value humor as a positive point of connection. Be funny with your kids. It'll help you connect with them. They're becoming more at ease with who they are and may become more honest than they have been in previous phases. Again, really good growth happening here in 11th grade. They often take on more than they can handle. Again, kind of coming to that self-awareness, how much can I take on? And they may struggle with regulating their emotion and social control at this age. Now, let's jump into the very last year, 12th grade. Physically, their wisdom teeth are going to start to, quote, come in, even though if you're like me, mine have not come in yet. They have difficulty falling asleep before 11 p.m. Again, this is why we do crazy stuff in youth group like lock-ins or lockouts where we stay up all night because it actually works well for them, even though I'm an old man and have to recover for like 4 days afterwards. They need 9 hours of sleep and 1 hour of exercise per day. Girls have reached their adult height and body development. Guys are still growing in height, developing muscle mass in body and facial hair. Again, their beard is still non-existent, but it's on its way. I don't know. Some people do have a beard in 12th grade. I'm 30 and still trying to grow a beard. That's decent. Socially, they have an increased interest in sexual expression, and we've got an increase in the percentage. 64% of 12th graders report being sexually active. Again, parents, we don't want to think about it, but the worst thing we can do when it comes to this kind of stuff with puberty, with sex, with pornography, the worst thing we can do is bury our heads in the sand. We've got to keep our eyes and ears to the ground, paying attention to what's happening in our kid, to be there to love and lead them through this stuff. They're less available for family time. They're kind of starting to detach from the family unit, which to you, as mom and dad, is going to feel horrible, but is actually a healthy thing. They're becoming independent, which at the end of the day is what you want. It is what you have raised them to become. And that's going to really start happening at this age. They want to feel ownership in personal decisions. They want to feel like they are picking, not you picking for them. They show respect for others' opinions, and they're able to compromise. And around 12th grade, they start to be more at ease around adults. I remember feeling this when I was in 12th grade. All of a sudden, it was like I wasn't as intimidated or weird around adult teachers. It was like, oh, I'm almost an adult too, is what they start to feel socially. Mentally, they may be overly romantic, or they can overly romanticize or catastrophize. This is why 12th graders swear that the girlfriend that they've had for the last year is going to be their wife, even though there's not a snowflake's chance in hell that that's going to happen. It's literally how they operate at this age. Or over catastrophize. They break up with that girl that they've been dating for the last year, and it is just the end of their life, right? It's literally it's baked into them at this age. It is a normal part of it, which is why we are there to love and lead them through it. They're open to discussing current affairs and social issues. They're capable of more complex, multi-step problem solving. They still struggle with long-term planning. And emotionally, here's what's going on. They're becoming more emotionally stable, finally. But still need the support and grace of mom and dad in their life. They often will begin to thrive in particular areas of interest. And so again, they're really figuring out who they are and who they're going to become. They value being true to themselves. So where in previous years they were so bogged down by conformity and trying to fit in, they're starting to value being true to who God made them to be at this age, which is great. And they'll frequently demonstrate initiative for their personal interests. That is the 18 years of development that they go through while they are living under their roof. And of course, they may still live under your roof for several years after. But in our years of primary responsibility for their care before they become full-fledged adults, those are the changes they are going through. So let me give you just a couple of pieces of encouragement in listening to this episode. Use this episode as a resource, because if you've got a 4-year-old now, someday you're going to have a 10th grader. If you've got a 7-year-old now, someday you're going to have a senior. And you are not going to remember all these changes. And these changes really do, I think, give us just a real good handle on how we can love and lead our children at each phase they go through. But it's important to remember, all those phases are exactly that. They are just a phase. So don't miss it, because once it's gone, it is not coming back. Now, let's talk about May in XKIDS. Explorers and Heroes. Let me give you a rundown of what we're going to be teaching them this month. In Explorers and Heroes, our series is called So Big, and what we're teaching them is that kids can do big things because they serve a big God, and nothing is too big for him. And so some of the stories we're going to be walking them through are Noah building the ark. We're going to talk about the story when Aaron and Hur helped Moses. We're going to talk about Deborah and Nehemiah this month, all with the bottom line, or the core truth that we are trying to teach them is God helps me do big things. And their memory verse is Psalm 54, verse 4, which says, I know that God helps me. And of course, you can find all of this plus more and some simple conversation starters on the Parent Resource tab in the X Church app. All you got to do is click on the little cross button at the bottom, right below the message notes is the Parent Resources tab. You can find all of this there. And then in Legends, our elementary age kids, our series is called I Spy. Get a clue about what to do. And we're talking kind of about how when God took care of our greatest need of salvation, we then can turn that and help other people take care of their needs. And in doing so, we actually are showing them the love of God when we meet their physical needs, when we help other people. And so we're going to walk through some of the stories of Scripture when Jesus would meet people and help them, and how that was actually showing them love. We're trying to teach them the virtue of initiative this month, and we're going to define that for them as seeing what needs to be done and doing it. So again, Sunday afternoon lunch, ask them, hey, are you guys learning about initiative? What is that? And hopefully by the end of the month, they'll be able to say something like seeing what needs to be done and doing it. And their memory verse is Philippians 2:4. None of you should look out for your own good. Each of you should look out for the good of others. And of course, all of this plus more can be found on the Parent Resource page. Well, hey, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being patient with me as we worked through all of this really good info on this episode. I promise next month will not be an hour long. We're going to get back to our 20 to 30 minute episode range. But like I said, all of this stuff is just so good. I don't want to miss out on any of it. I want to put it all in front of you. So again, thank you for listening, and thank you for doing the work of being a parent. I'm going to remind you, just like I always do, when you parent well today, you make the world a better place tomorrow. When we do our job of raising our kids, paying attention to the phases that they are going through, what we're actually doing is creating healthier, stronger, more stable adults who are going to create a better world tomorrow. Thanks for listening. See you next time.